Have you had to buy eggs lately? I mean, we don't usually, but I did have to the other day. And what surprised me was not the price. I mean, I don't remember the last time that I bought eggs, but you all probably know food prices are just out of control at the moment, and especially fresh food prices. But we had a party coming up, and also we're collecting and incubating all of our own eggs. In fact, we've just finished building this brand new chick brooder box, which I'll show you all about. In fact, I'm going to take you through our entire incubation and chick raising process in this video. It wasn't the price of the eggs that got to me, it was that I tried to buy 4 dozen, and apparently that's a big no-no. I got told to take half of them back. There's a limit on eggs. And when I asked why, they said egg shortage, and that was about it. I mean, I did a little bit of Googling, and look, I don't want to put my tinfoil hat on for too long, but I didn't believe everything I read, let's just put it that way. And it made me grateful that we're taking responsibility for our own food security here on our homestead. Now, if you're homesteading, or if you're backyard homesteading, or look, you're just thinking about being more self-sufficient with your food, where it comes from, and you know, the quality of it and all of that, then chickens is probably something you've already considered, you may already be doing. In fact, I'd be surprised if you're homesteading and you're not doing the first two things, a veggie garden and a backyard chicken flock. Everybody does that first. I mean, you probably add a few little animals here and there into the mix, but those two are primarily the first two adventures or forays into food security that most people get into. And backyard hens are pretty simple. In fact, setting up for a backyard hen operation, I've made a little video on that. You can check that out here. But what I'm going to take you through today is taking that backyard hen operation to the next level. There's a few reasons you might want to incubate and raise your own chicks. Number one, chickens don't live forever. You've got to replace the flock over time. You're lucky to get 5 to 7 years maybe out of a heritage breed hen, and she doesn't lay for all of that time. And if you're using a commercial, like a commercial brown or an ISA brown, then, you know, 3 years is a pretty average kind of lifespan for them. So maybe it's just because you need to, you know, continue to raise and add to your flock of hens. Maybe you're thinking about raising meat chickens. It's something we're doing, and it's why we're kind of experimenting with some of the particular breeds that we're raising here on our homestead. But maybe, like me, you've just realized that there's a little bit of money to be made, because if the price of eggs is where it is at the moment, then that means more people are going to consider backyard hens. More people are going to look for alternative sources for buying their eggs, and so hey, if we can upscale a little bit here, then why not? So today I'm going to take you through everything. I'm going to assume you've got a chicken coop, you've got hens, you know, you've already started collecting eggs, you know all of that. And like I said, you can check out one of our other videos if you want to know a bit more about that if you're just getting started. But where to from here? If you've already got backyard hens, what would it take to go from this to this? You're already collecting the eggs, so I'm going to take you through a real simple setup. Bare bones basics and on a budget. What do you need to be able to incubate and raise your own chickens? Well, obviously it all starts right here at the nesting box, which I'm assuming you've already got, because I'm assuming you've got hens already, and of course you're collecting the eggs. There's two things I want you to consider when collecting eggs for incubation: cleanliness and temperature. And really that comes down to the behavior of your adult chickens, your hens. So number one, I'm just using a cutout milk crate. We just cut the front of it, and I just use cut dried grass as the nesting material. They add their own feathers in over time, and that's fine, that works. But one of the problems with this design is these little edges here are perfect little roosts. So if you don't have a more ideal roosting setup that the chickens would prefer over this, then you might find your chickens roost on the edges of these overnight, and if they're facing the wrong way, they're going to poop right into your nesting box. That's a big problem, because maybe you've just cleaned the eggs off and, you know, put them in the fridge because you're eating your eggs. That's not a problem. You can do that if you're just eating them, but you really don't want to be cleaning these eggs if you're going to be incubating them. Look, you can, and there's some complex procedures that I could tell you about, but we won't go into that, because the most ideal is that you're collecting already cleaned eggs. And the reason you can't clean them is because when this egg is laid, there's a protective coating on the outside of it called the bloom. And the bloom is basically like an antibacterial barrier. It stops infection, pathogens getting into this egg. The eggshell, if you were to look at it under a microscope, it's porous. It needs to be able to let oxygen in. I mean, that's how the embryo is going to get its oxygen. And so, you know, pathogens could get in through that eggshell, but that's what the bloom prevent. So you don't want to wash that bloom off the egg. So number one, you've got to come up with a way to prevent your chickens from pooping into the nesting box. If they're in the habit of roosting on here, I'd say just put a lid on it. In fact, put a sloped lid on it, because then they don't like roosting on that slope. And if your hens are in the habit of sleeping in the nesting box, usually not a huge problem, but they could warm that egg up. I mean, after all, that's what a hen's body does. It warms the egg up and begins the incubation process. So if they're sleeping in here overnight, you might want to consider a little door or a board or a flap on the front that you can close every night. Just train them out of that habit. Those are the two things you want to consider at your nesting box. Next is storage. So let's head over to our egg storage. Egg storage is going to be your first real expense, because you can't just store them in the fridge and you can't store them at room temperature. You've got to keep them somewhere in between that range. In fact, 12 degrees is what you're aiming for. Now, the ultimate would be a wine fridge. We used to do commercial specialty breed incubating and chick raising. It's something we're looking at getting back into, and honestly, I'd look to buying a wine fridge again. That was perfect. Not only has it got the little individual racks, but you can set that temperature specifically at that 12 degrees, which is the ideal temperature. But you can get around that just by using something insulated. So honestly, the cheapest, most budget thing that I would do if I had to would be an old esky, you know, a cooler box, because it's insulated. You just keep it in a cool dark, like your basement, your garage. I've got my setup here in my shed. It's perfect. So I'm using an old bar fridge. It's not plugged in, but because it's well insulated, I'm getting these eggs to below room temperature. So 12 degrees would be ideal. That's Celsius, it's that in Fahrenheit. But if I was kind of somewhere between that 12 to 20 degree range, which this is, then that's ideal. Now, something I should have mentioned over at the chicken coop is, you need to move from collecting eggs just once a day, if that's what you're doing, to collecting them, I'm going to say, at least 3 times a day. Number one, you don't want eggs sitting there getting, like I said, warmed up by a hen overnight. I mean, hopefully you're not letting eggs sit there overnight anyway, but you also don't want eggs getting warmed up by that midday sun. So you want to collect eggs, you know, in the middle of the morning. That's probably when the bulk of your eggs are going to be there for collection. You definitely want to collect at midday, or when your day is the warmest, so those eggs aren't getting warmed up by the sun. And you want to do a end of day collection so that you don't have any eggs sitting there overnight. And the other advantage of collecting at least 3 times a day is that you're going to be bringing your eggs, storing them here in your egg storage setup, and you're also going to be keeping them moving. Now, you might have noticed I'm just using an egg carton and a little block of wood. And the reason for that is, every time I collect my eggs, every single time, I just move that block of wood from one end to the other, and it's tipping those eggs back and forth. What's really important is that that egg is not only oriented the right way, so you want it pointy end down, big fat round end up, because in there is the air cell. If you were to store it up that way, that air cell is going to try and make its way up through the egg. It's going to disturb the contents of the egg. That's really a problem, because that yolk is perfectly positioned in the center of that egg. Now, the reason we rotate them is because the yolk can drift towards the shell over time. So that movement from left to right and back again keeps it well centered until it's time to incubate it. And you'll see in your incubator, it's got a function that keeps that egg moving for the exact same reason. Well, obviously, your main piece of kit is going to be your incubator, or incubators. I'll explain why I've got 2 in just a moment. Now, there's mixed reviews about these. I use a Janelle 48. I picked these 2 up secondhand. Someone was selling them for $100. I couldn't pass that up. I've used these in the past. There's an El Cheapo, cheap Chinese knockoff version of these that you can buy for about $100 new. I mean, I'm not sure. The cheaper, the dodgier. Maybe the heating element's going to melt the plastic and start a fire, so probably don't go that cheap. But do your own research. I've used everything from these right up to big commercial scale cabinet style incubators. How much you spend is going to be what you get, but they're all going to have basically the same functions. They're going to be keeping the right temperature, they're going to be keeping the right humidity, and they're going to be keeping those eggs moving. The first thing I would absolutely add to any incubator, no matter whether or not it's one of these kind of cheaper budget versions or even the large commercial scale, is going to be a secondary device for measuring temperature and humidity. So a thermometer, hydrometer, a digital one is good. You should be able to pick one up for $20 or $30 on, you know, eBay or wherever. I like this little one because it's wireless. It connects to a hub in the room next door. I've also got another device called a power outage alarm device that connects to this, and so I get alerts and notifications. I've set alerts and notifications when my temperature and humidity ranges go beyond a certain limit, and if the power goes out. Honestly, that's the worst thing that can happen. The power goes out overnight, you're asleep, you didn't realize it, it comes back on. When you wake up in the morning, everything seems fine, but you've just lost your whole batch. Now, the reason I've got 2 incubators is because because we're doing smaller batches of eggs and I'm only collecting from 3 hens at the moment. And because of that, there's actually a limit to how long you can store the eggs before you've got to get them in the incubator. In fact, about 10 days. If you're keeping them in that sort of 12 to 20 degree range, then your eggs are going to keep for 2 weeks maximum, but I wouldn't go more than 10 days. Now, I'm not getting as many eggs in 10 days as I can fit in this incubator from my 3 laying hens. This is a Genoa 48. It's got 6 rows, 8 eggs a row. It can take 48 eggs. Now, if I was, purchasing fertilized eggs because I was maybe, raising some specialty breeds, or if I had a whole lot more hens and I had a whole lot more eggs of my own to collect, then I'd maybe just do the whole 48 in one go. But I'm not doing that. The other thing I'm doing is I'm just kind of raising my chicks in smaller batches anyway. So because of that, I need a second incubator, and I'll explain why. Whatever your incubator that you purchase, it's going to have some sort of mechanism inside of it for keeping those eggs moving. They might be kind of rotating around like a central hub. They might be rocking back and forth. There'll be some sort of mechanism in there that keeps them moving. On day 18, your conditions for incubating change. They need to. First of all, the main condition that needs to change is humidity. That chick needs a little bit higher humidity, that's moisture content in the air, to help it out of the egg. And that's really important because there's a membrane just inside the shell of the egg that she's got to kind of tear open. If that membrane dries out while she's in the process of hatching out of her egg, then she can dry that membrane to the point where it sticks to her body, and in fact, they don't usually survive that process. That's called shrink wrapping. It's horrible as it sounds. You don't want that to happen, and that's why from day 18 to day 21, so the total process is 21 days, 3 weeks. Those last 3 or 4 days are what we call lockdown. No, not that kind of lockdown. Sorry if I triggered you, but lockdown is where we do not open the incubator lid for those days because we don't want to let any of that precious humidity escape. We certainly don't want to shrink wrap any of our chicks while they're trying to make their way out of the egg. Now, if you were just doing a single batch in your incubator, you'd get to day 18, you'd kind of set an alarm for what day that is. I write it on the outside of the egg in pencil. I write down the date it was collected, the date that lockdown starts, and the expected hatch date. So day 0, day 18, day 21. I write all that on the outside of the egg so that I'm always keeping tabs of it. On day 18, you'd be removing the mechanical device that rocks or rotates those eggs. So usually that's just a tray that kind of comes out, and then you'd be setting the eggs on some sort of a non-slip surface. So usually there's a water reservoir, maybe it's in the bottom. It's what's providing the basic humidity, maybe about 50% humidity in the first 18 days of incubation, and then you're going to be adding extra water to that system so that you can increase that humidity to closer to 75% for that lockdown period. But you're also going to give the eggs something to sit on and the chicks something to walk on. So usually, like this one here, comes with a really simple kind of a mesh plate that just goes in the bottom so that, number one, the eggs can kind of stay just sort of nicely set in position. They don't need rocking and rotating anymore, but also really importantly that when the chicks hatch out, they don't get what's called splayed leg. If they were on a really smooth surface, their legs literally go out to the side and they don't really recover from that. We've tried a few times. There's a few methods that occasionally work but rarely do. So non-slip kitchen drawer mats are perfect. If your incubator has a really smooth surface, just add them to the base of your incubator when it's time for hatching. So those conditions need to change, and if you're just doing a single batch, you'd be pulling all the eggs out on day 18. You'd be upping the humidity by, usually it's adding more water. You'd be swapping out the rocker unit or rotator unit for just a base plate or a mat, whatever the setup is, and then you'd be leaving it alone for those last 3 or 4 days while all the chicks hatch. Now, because I'm doing smaller batches, my eggs are moving into another unit because I can't do it daily. So imagine this scenario. I collect an egg. Today is, let's say it's the 1st of the month. I write on it 1, 18, 21. On day 18, I go and pop that egg in the hatching unit where it needs to stay locked down for the next 3 days. But on the 2nd of the month, I collect another egg. I write on it 2, 19, 22. Those are the dates that are important. Date collected, date for lockdown, date that it's going to hatch. On day 19, this egg's still in here on lockdown. I can't open this to put that next inside. So I do my eggs in batches where I leave a period of about 5 to 7 days in between. So all the eggs that are in here right now, in fact, these eggs that are in here right now got set last night. They're all due to hatch in, let's see, probably about 2 days time, but the next batch of eggs coming into here aren't coming in for another 2 or 3 days after that. That's how we run our process, because I'm doing smaller batches, and so just 2 identical incubators, I found that works just fine for us. Well, welcome to our brand new brooder box. This will be the next thing you need to get set up if you're wanting to raise chicks, and I'll show you just how we built this one. Actually last up to 48 hours without food or water. That last little absorption of yolk that they do just before hatching is enough nutrient to get them through 48 hours. That's really important because the eggs don't all hatch out in the exact same minute. So whoever the slowest one is, you know, and takes their time coming out of the egg, the first one needs to be able to survive that time, because obviously lockdown, you can't open them up to get them out. And in nature, mama hen does the same. She sits on those eggs until that last egg hatches, or until she's sure that there's no more eggs that are going to hatch. All right, up to 48 hours there in that, but then where do they go? Honestly, the simplest is just a box. I had these in a plastic tub, just like a storage tub with, I already had this bit of hardware mesh because I knew I was going to build this, just on the top as a lid. So shelter, food, water, and warmth. So your chicks are still going to need warmth, ideally around about 30 degrees. Now, in your pet store, you're going to find heat lamps. I don't like heat lamps. The bulbs are really expensive when you have to replace them, not if. You can get ceramic bulbs, they're even more expensive, but they don't break as often. But in both scenarios, I found that my chicks get burnt wings on them because they just get too close. You've got to constantly be adjusting the height of that thing. What I really like are these heat or brooder plates. So jump online, you'll find them in tons of pet stores or rural supply stores. They keep a nice even temperature. The chicks can press right up against that heat plate and not get burned. And they've got these adjustable legs. So little tip, I set the front low and the back high, and the chicks just pick the height that suits them. So that's shelter and warmth. Food, you can use these plastic feeders. They're pretty common. They're a couple of bucks. You're not going to spend much on those. That's ideal. Top it right up. You get a few days of feed out of that. And then a waterer. Now you can buy a similar style waterer with a dish in the bottom. It's got a reservoir on the top. I find the chicks get those really messy. They're always kicking up. You know, you're going to use some sort of bedding material. I use just wood chips. You can buy pine wood shavings if you want. Straw's not ideal, but whatever you use as a bedding is going to get into that waterer, and it just clogs it up, and they don't, you know, they lose access to their water. This is a DIY waterer. I've just bought these little waterer nipples. They're a couple of dollars each. They're threaded. You can buy the tapping tool to, you know, thread it into a bucket or a bit of PVC pipe, or I just buy these little sections here that have already got a thread in them. And then this is totally DIY. I've got a bucket sitting out here. They don't do well under your house pressure, so you want kind of a gravity pressure. So I've just got a bucket set up as a water supply. It's supplying this. The chicks learn how to press on that. The beauty of doing mixed ages of chicks in here is the older ones will teach the younger ones how to use it. So that's food, water, shelter, and warmth, and obviously then your feed. Now don't be tempted to take your regular layer flock chicken feed and grind it up smaller for your baby chicks. You're going to have two problems. Number one, layer feed in particular, if you're buying layer pellets or layer mash, is high in calcium content for that egg production. That high calcium content is no good for your chicks. Number two, look at the size of, let's find a day old. You're pretty close to a day old. And then who, oh, you're my oldest. I reckon you're probably about 5 weeks old now. Look at the amount of muscle mass they've got to put on. So they need a really high protein diet, and your chick starter crumble or your chick starter mash, whatever it's called in your farm supply store or your pet store, is high in protein content. It's about $35 a bag. Honestly, that bag's going to do my little batch of about 30 chicks here for the entire process. And that's all you need. So that's how easy it was to take our basic backyard chicken setup and add egg incubation incubating and chick raising to it. And if you're thinking of doing the same, I've put together a document, linked down below, that lists all the gear that we needed to get started, as well as some of the DIY stuff that we did. In fact, I've put together two lists for you. The budget version, which will get you up and running for a couple of $100, and the ultimate version, which includes some gear that's even on my wish list. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful. Subscribe to our channel if you want to see more content like this. Otherwise, we'll see you next week.